Why not? Why not? Why not? Why not?
Hello, 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 hello. Hello, 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 hello. Yeah, I guess it's working now. What? I OBS is so weird, dog. I swear. Hello, 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 hello. Yeah, I guess it's working now. What? I. Oy, whatever, whatever. The game can be heard. Whatever can be heard. I'm here now. How's it going, everybody? I spent a good like 7 minutes trying to figure this out. I hate live streaming so much. But yeah, let me at least replay this.
結構きついかもね。あなたの役目。
Oh yeah. So we're back with more what's it called? Back with more what's the word? Back with more Witch on a Holy Night. We're here. Gonna be gaming. It's gonna be fun. And I don't know how I'm gonna be doing it. Gonna try to do for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, but we're just gonna have to wait and see. But yeah, no, game's still being recorded, so we're just gonna keep the gravy train rolling, I guess. Let me just pull up the stream on my phone so I can at very least I can at very least know. There you go. Has some comments showing up. Alrighty. Alko warned Sojiro, moving as fast as she could without her her footfalls causing a din of noise. Sojiro remained near the center of the spiral maze on the second floor.
実を言うと、もう一つ用意しておいた仕掛けがあるの。自分でもやりすぎだって呆れたもんだけど、あなたがここに来るのが遅かったから。
仕掛けって俺用の？
Sojiro tilted his head like a squirrel as Alko freely discussed the final ace up her sleeve.
地下の柱に着火型のちょっとした魔術式を刻んでおいたの。中心の柱に点火することで連鎖的に他の柱に仕掛けた魔術も起動する。ジャミングを食らう前に作ったものだから、直接魔力を叩き込めば一気にこういくわ。
Sojiro was a little unsettled by how unclear that last bit was.
青崎、こうじゃわからない。できるだけ明確にどこまで爆破する気だったのか白状してくれ。あと、もしかして俺早まったか？
いや、その単なる保険っていうか。
What did she think he was going to do? Like, I know it was good to have that contingency, but like that's spoilery stuff, so I can't say that. But her, she doesn't know that. What was she thinking he was going to do? That's just super loud, though. Put you down there, so at least it can't be like too much. So let's go right here. All right.
追いかけっこの途中であんたを見失ったら、いっそ建物ごと爆破しちゃおうかなって。
It was her policy to be thorough to a fault, after all. She laughed, embarrassed to hear herself say it out loud.
いくらなんでも徹底しすぎてる。
Faced with Alko's cruelty, Soldier forgot about the situation at hand and protested from the bottom of his heart.
何よ、いいじゃない。そのおかげでなんとかなりそうなんだから。
She shot back. Alko dashed down a corridor, mumbling things that probably would have sent Sojiro packing if he heard them. The strategy was simple. Alko would use the escape route to the right and avoid the puppet while making her way down to the basement. Upon reaching the central pillar, she would infuse the formula she had prepared with magical energy and escape. Once ignited, it would take about a minute for the chain reaction to spread throughout the whole House of Mirrors, and another minute for the building to collapse. She would be cutting it a little close, but she had committed the maze to memory. She was sure she could make it out in time. Alko assumed that the chain reaction caused by the pillar would clear the barrier that the puppet had placed at the entrance. And even if it was strong enough to withstand the blast, it would not be able to stay standing once the foundations buckled. Soldier's escape was assured as long as the formula in the basement was activated. Next came the most important part. That the automaton was at a disadvantage in the obstacle-laden house. I never heard that word before, laden. How do you pronounce that? Laden. Oh, wow, I said it right. Yeah, laden. Thought it was Laden. Or, yeah, laden, yeah, whatever. The automaton was at a disadvantage in the obstacle-laden house of mirrors and was unable to move at full speed. If it was near the center of the second floor when the building collapsed, it would have been caught up and crushed by it. So the problem was keeping the puppet on the second floor until Alko could make it down to the basement. Ideally, he would be able to keep it busy until she could activate the formula. If that failed to work, him luring it down to the first floor would be the next best thing. She understood perfectly well the danger she was putting Sojiro in, but his lucky streak and and running speed were nothing to scoff at.
ただ逃げるだけなら、もしかしてとんでもないことをしてくれるかも、あいつ。
Alko made her way through the hidden passage of the maze, her hopes pinned on Sojiro. Meanwhile, while out of earshot, Sojiro was readying himself for another desperate chase. He calmed his beating heart using a method of his own making. What mattered most was that he remained calm. The plan was simple enough, and Alko's orders were succinct and easy to understand.
10メートルぐらいの距離を保ってできるだけゆっくり通路を3、4周すること。横道は鏡のつなぎ目で覚えて。ここなら左回りで6、3、7、2枚目にあるから、そこをぐるぐる回ってれば比較的安全よ。
Count the mirrors. What? It's the thing with visual novels, especially anime visual novels, where it's just like I'm not. It's not like I'm dumb, but this is. They're cut above normal people, so it makes sense why they'd be able to do something like this. But it's just like, man, if I was entrusted with something like that, I'd be fried. Essentially a looping marathon. As long as Sojiro kept just enough distance from the puppet's extended arm to allow her to track him, she could continue to chase him indefinitely. Simple though the task was, Sojiro was putting his life on the line as bait. And then it was the final order to run as fast as he could to the exit when the building began to sway.
結構じゃなくてかなりきついんじゃないかなこれは。
He nervously stuck his head out from around the corner. He could hear the sound of the music box from the other side of the corridor. First he had to make eye contact with it, then head through the shortcut on the right and begin their game of tag. He spotted it and braced himself. Closer, closer. Fearing that her arm could fly at him at any moment, he went over Alko's instructions in his head. However, he could not quite remember which pain led to the first hidden passage. The third, the sixth, the ninth, the second, the 17th. That's the face of a man who's accepted his fate. No. He was sure that was mistaken. He was confident he had memorized it moments ago, but his nerves had gotten the best of him, and his head was now spinning. Then, Sojiro realized that the sound of his pursuer was beginning to grow distant, at an incredible speed. What? The unusual silhouette of the puppet astonished him. Before, it had taken the form of a beautiful girl, but now it made a bizarre transformation. It returned to the first floor to pursue her primary target. Sojiro was no longer sure what to do. Before he'd even had time to mourn his failure, the puppet had vanished out of sight. Oh, so let me go. Or so he had said, but now he could not follow through. Alone, he tilted his head in frustration. He spoke into the darkness as if Alko would be there to answer him. Meanwhile, downstairs, as soon as she arrived on the first floor, Alko understood what had transpired above her. She did not even have to strain her ears to hear the puppet. Even during its heyday, this attraction had never made sounds like the one she heard coming toward her now. It was a sound of despair, as if a horde of monstrous hedgehogs were scraping their way past the mirrors in her direction. What? What? Rather than buying her time, Sojiro had instead stolen hers. He had one job, to run away. That was all. She cursed him under her breath. The echoes made it sound like dozens of feet were approaching. Alko's mind conjured an image of a giant six-legged spider tearing its way down the corridor. It was a little wonder that it was so much faster than before. His perception of its surroundings through echolocation was of particular use in the dark. Compared to the sight-dependent humans, this automaton was far better equipped to navigate its way through the labyrinth of mirrors. If it could not keep pace earlier, that had been because its bipedal mode made it less maneuverable. Now, the stability provided by multiple legs gave it a speed that far exceeded that of any human.
どうするどうするどうする
Her thoughts spun out as she tried to come up with a plan B. All she knew for sure was that this was the pivotal moment. Pivotal moment. If she continued standing still, she had seconds left at most. Even in her current state, she knew she could easily neutralize the bounded field, blocking the entrance without casting a spell. All she had to do was feed a little of her own energy into it. Alka could spend with all her might for a little more than 3 minutes. The puppet had far more stamina than she did. She could only come up with 3 options. First was to escape through the exit in front of her. Second was to hide somewhere on the more complicated first floor. And third was to run into the basement and be stuck like a rat in a trap.
なんだ考えるまでもない
She made her decision with zero hesitation, moving her stiff legs again with determined strength. The oncoming storm was almost upon her. Her resolve firm, she turned and ran descending into the darkness. No matter what, a finale should be glorious. This would be the Mirror Castle's final scene. 2 humans and a puppet. A young sorceress ran toward the subterranean heart of the castle, while an autonomous antique chases prey into the depths of a demonic dungeon. Alright, video game, thanks for telling me this is the final scene of the Mirror Castle. A minute later, a faint blue charge will ripple through the castle. This is the main pillar in the deepest depths of the basement. Though not critical to the castle structure, here, the pillar was visible. A visible symbol of it. The girl concentrated her magical energy into a fist and thrust it at the pillar. This is the blow that would bring down the castle. She imagined her destruction as she threw the punch, and that scene blossomed into reality seconds later. It was simple ignition magecraft, meant to release the condensed magical energy engraved into the 4 pillars at the corners of the structure. Using electricity as a switch meant virtually instantaneous activation. Oh. It happened swiftly and elegantly. A hammer of destruction descended upon the castle of dreams that had stubbornly resisted its fate for 2 years. It was almost a joyous sound. And so, the lifeless and abandoned Castle of Mirrors set the stage for its final and most spectacular performance. Alka's magical energy became an electrical charge that activated the magecraft formula engraved into the pillar. The chain reaction would lead to the castle's destruction.
ご苦労様でも思ってたよりくたびれてたのねこれ
Oh, dang. Hold on.
でも思ってたよりくたびれてたのねこれじゃあ1分持つかどうか
Yeah, we're playing Clash of Clans midstream. What about it? Oof, never mind. I gotta save that for later. That's a lot of stuff I gotta work on. The plaza in the center of the basement. Alka tried to steady her breathing while rotating her magic crest at full speed. She wreathed her arms in blue light, fully aware that she could no longer activate another formula. Her labored breathing refused to settle. She stood at the center of the basement. Without being spotted even once, she managed to make it all the way to the central pillar. It was a 100-meter dash in 13 seconds flat. Undoubtedly a new personal best. She spurred on her weakened heart, knowing full well the fate that awaited her.
入れば追ってくる地下に行けば逃げられない当然よね最後まで逃げ回ろうなんて虫のいい話だった
Hindsight was 2020. The castle was only a minute away from collapsing completely. If they stayed here, they would both be crushed by the rubble. The puppet certainly did not care. With no life of its own, its sole concern was the elimination of its target, Aoko Aozaki. Indeed, the enemy had been willing to die from the start. She resented her own lack of resolve. It wasn't like her to tuck tail and run from an opponent that didn't fear death. It's so funny because it's a puppet, but to hear such a human voice, so monotone, come from it, it's like, if it looked more human, you wouldn't be able to tell it's a puppet.
そもそも自爆覚悟じゃないあれ。六足歩行とフィンの一撃は使いすぎよ。もう呪詛による魔力補給じゃ間に合わない。
Such a perpetual motion device is only as good as its ability to regulate its energy consumption. Using so many functions at once meant it was burning through fuel quickly and losing the ability to process the curses that powered it. It was using up all the functions that it had been given to achieve its aim. This was the pride of a tool, if such things could have ego. Those endowed with sentience could never hope to understand. A beast born to do nothing but run would burn any human who faced this resolve.
こういう無茶をするのは姉貴だけかと思ってたけど、いるところにはいるもんね。
But Aoko did not intend to sacrifice play here. She respected her adversary now, and she was done regretting her choices. There was no time to waste.
行くわよ。ここできっかり。
Aoko had every intention of paying it back double for what it had done to her. The energy Aoko had accumulated exploded out of her right leg. She aimed for a single thing, a head-on attack. The enemy responded with a lethal curse that reached for her heart like set of talons. Humming with power, it meant to rend Aoko's heart and burn itself out in the process. As soon as she saw it, Aoko kicked the floor as hard as she could. Her long hair swirled through the air as she flipped aside. This lateral move almost sent her tumbling to the ground, but a quick swing of her arm allowed her to regain her balance. A shot grazed her arm, the curse scorching her left shoulder. She did not flinch. Aoko knew she could hold on as long as she continued to avoid a direct Finch shot. Off balance and in pain, it took her half a second to recover. The moment she raised her head, she deflected the attack with a fistful of magical energy. Hold on, let me see something. Eliza P. Okay, yeah. Just had to make sure that I was still, still being heard.
せーの。
If the puppet had a will of its own, its eyes would have popped right out of its sockets. It would have been floored, shocked at the strong will that allowed this girl to perform a series of moves like this. Aoko's response was instantaneous. While her power was not sufficient to completely redirect the arm's trajectory, it was just enough to deflect it harmlessly past her hair. The chant became a curse that robbed Aoko of her vitality. Did it still have something left in the tank? Or was it actually indignant? Whatever the reason, Aoko was easily able to resist its weakened defensive maneuver. Oh goodness, that must hurt. And her right leg, pulsing with magical energy, shot up into the puppet's chest from below. It was much lighter than Aoko anticipated. Or rather, she felt little resistance. An automaton's weight was determined by its internals, the size of its power source. Ironically, it was the superiority of its music box engine that would prove to be its downfall.
Venite, venite, venite. Meum sepulchrum, venite.
A stuttering curse. Having taken the full blunt of Alco's cake, the puppet bounced from ceiling to floor, collapsing in a heap. Its eternal construction had been warped by the impact, leaving the drum of the music box that powered the puppet warped as well.
恨むなら設計者を恨みなさい。ダイナモの一つでも積んでいれば、もうちょっとは重たくなったでしょうに。
Part of the ceiling came crashing down in front of Alco, snapping her back to her senses.
ところで今、どうやってぶっ倒したんだろう。
She was so stunned by her own victory that she forgot the House of Mirrors had begun to collapse.
こっちの方がやばかった。
There was no time to relish in her victory or pity her opponent, not unless she wanted to meet the same fate. As the situation stood, she found it hard to imagine getting out alive.
急げ、ダッシュだ私。
She clapped herself on the cheeks to motivate herself anew. This was her bounty for finishing her battle in a matter of seconds. Her breath ragged with excitement, Alco ran for the exit. The collapse was intensifying by the second. Having lost its support pillars, the castle was buckling under its own weight.
この邪魔。
She'd be frying, bro. Oh my goodness. Man, the bazaar. Escaping from the basement was proving to be no easy task. While she was taking the shortest route possible through the maze, she was nearly crushed by a falling piece of ceiling along the way. It was the second time, no, the third, she had to deal with fallen rubble along the way. She destroyed the debris on the stairs with magical bullets as she ran. The automaton's jamming had long since worn off. The early attack had damaged the vast majority of its functions. Ako's breathing was heavy as she ran. Desperation sparked her brain in an overdrive. That's so cool that you can see it like an after shadow. Or an after image, rather. The ceiling seemed to be collapsing in slow motion. Life seemed to flash before her very eyes, each second stretching to 5. Her frayed nerves made it hard to tell the time. There was debris riddled throughout the stairway, forcing her to crawl up it. She emerged from the destroyed basement into the collapsing first floor. That was the plaza, that the plaza was still traversable at all was a miracle in itself. Unfortunately for her, the crucial path to the exit was still intact.
よし、ついてる。
The corridor to the entrance is still intact. The basement maze only extended as far as the plaza, so the entrance corridor wouldn't collapse, or the seating would cave in, leaving the scaffolding surround intact. Wait. What? Surround or scaffolding surrounded what? I think I just misunderstand that, or that might be a typo, I can't tell. Oh well. She got herself this far by telling herself repeatedly that fate would decide whether or not she reached the plaza. Her gamble paid off. It was her lucky day. All she had to do was muster the last of her strength and keep moving forward until... She hesitated for a fraction of a second. Was it naivety? A sense of responsibility? She pushed aside the image that popped into her head and continued running down the corridor.
言っとくけど、時間合わせの余裕はないわよ。そんな上等な作戦じゃないし、お互いできることをやったら最速で出口に向かいましょう。
That was 5 minutes ago. At the time, Soldier had nodded with trepidation, and Alco had not bothered to ask herself why.
何様だっての私、今は走ることだけ考えろ。
This corridor was giving out too. If she were to look back, she was sure she would see the building collapsing in on her. She was also sure she had no time to waste doing so. Her luck was fading as fast as the building's structural integrity. It was a small miracle that she had escaped serious injury up to this point, and she could not afford even the slightest slip-up. An ankle sprain, loss of balance, or even a sneeze would be fatal. A simple pat on the back would be enough to end it. So naturally... Oh, there it was, clear as day. From the detritus of the stairway, death had arisen to take her down with it. A corpse that had crawled its way up from the depths of hell itself. It was still operational. That's cool that she used the mirror, or excuse me, the glass from the mirrors to see that. That's so cool. And it was still armed with curses. It had crawled after her, watching as Akko desperately tried to save herself. The puppet's arm shot forward. While Akko did not turn to meet it, she could see its reflection in the mirrors.
E salvato, e salvato, e salvato, e salvato.
Extend, extend, extend. This time she could not dodge it. There was absolutely nothing she could do. The puppet with her face sang.
Venit domum meum. Lut sine sum mei. Et pulvere simile quotidiano. Cor credo. Te iudico.
For a moment she could not believe her eyes. It was the last thing she'd expected to see.
しつこいぞお前。
A fierce expression adorned the face of a boy who had been waiting in the plaza as he smashed up the puppet's outstretched arm. And he really did not suit him at all. His weapon of choice was a fire extinguisher. He must have searched the maze for something to use as a weapon. No, never mind that. It was too crazy to contemplate, but I stayed behind for her. Akko stopped the feet she had sworn would never stop moving, and extended a hand out to him. Sojiro tossed the fire extinguisher aside and took off running. Pieces of the ceiling continued to collapse like dominoes. They kept moving with dust and dirt following in their wake. Their shadows raced through the collapsing corridor with all their strength. The castle was in throes of death. With a massive crash and a cloud of dust, the final chapter of the fairy tale that had been Kitsyland came to an abrupt end. I forgot that's the name of the place. That's funny. The duel to the death was over. For a moment, amidst their swirling emotions, any past enmity was forgotten. Two collapsed on a lawn and basked in strange solidarity. The ringing in their ears subsided before long. A tremor of such magnitude seemed impossible in an amusement park like this. As the sounds of destruction echoed across the park, Akko addressed the individual at her side.
生きてる。
While the click of her tongue was adorable, the meaning behind it was anything but.
青崎、あいつどうなった？
見ての通りよ。今頃バラバラ死体になってるんじゃない？
Sojiro sighed, not wholly relieved by her frank response. His reason?
でも、そんな心配より自分の心配をした方がいいと思うわよ。
Oh my gosh, hold on.
でも、そんな心配より自分の心配をした方がいいと思うわよ。しずきくん。
Yeah.
青崎、子供の頃はいじめっ子だっただろ。
可逆趣味はないって自負してるけど、それで今の自分の立場分かってる？
She sat up and smiled. Sojiro hung his head in shame, wondering why her kind tone and expression were so chilling.
面目次第もございません。
かしこまってもダメよ。あの提案には大前提があったわよね。これは取引だって。あなたが役に立つのなら見逃してあげるっていう。
分かってる。だから面目ないって言ってるだろ。
Sojiro made a show of avoiding her eyes, like a pouting child. Hako was taken aback by this sulky display. Perhaps he was angry at himself rather than her. He was not mad because she would not let him go. He was mad that he had not done his part. Hako sighed for what seemed like the millionth time that day. She could not figure out what surprised her more, his unconditional kindness or her naive approval of it.
じゃあ覚悟はできてるの？
そんなのはできないけど、約束だからな。結局は何もしていないし。
It's certainly the case that he'd failed to do any of the things she had expected of him. But just then, she glanced back to the collapsed house of mirrors. What had he done after failing so spectacularly? He had searched for the extinguisher so he could use it as a weapon, and waited patiently in the plaza as the maze collapsed all around him just because he thought it was wrong to leave her behind. It was a foolish choice, and the exact opposite of her choice to run towards the exit without hesitation.
ま、それでよしとするか。
She was satisfied, even as she was shocked at how naive she was being. It was true that he had saved her. She smiled inwardly, admiring, if only for a moment, the bravery he continued to show in the face of such extreme circumstances.
役割は果たさなかったけど、アフターケアは合格だし、約束は守らなくちゃね。
With a nod, she pulled herself up to her feet. Pulled herself to her feet.
約束は、ま、いつか守ってもらうとして。
The girl tried to keep a straight face as she offered a hand to the boy still lying on the ground.
結果はどうあれ手助けしてもらったし、特別サービスってことで、今夜はもう手を出さないであげる。
She bashfully averted her gaze. His gaze. There you go. Oh wait, no. Okay, I can see how that can... I can see the vision. I can see it. Okay. Though her profile appeared different than it had in the past, it was clearly still the face of a vibrant girl he met the day he first arrived in town.
何？
As if she had felt his eyes on her, she shot him a frowning glare.
いや、突拍子もないけど、青崎は律儀だなって。
He took her outstretched hand, feeling his weight as she pulled him up. She could not help but think that he was about the last person she wanted to hear that from.
ところで、今夜はって言うけど、明日からは。
さあ、ま、その時になったら考えるわ。
She shrugged her shoulders as if she was not sure herself. The response was so unlike her that it made Sojiro smile. Was it the solidarity of having escaped death together, or their fleeting camaraderie that made him do so? It might have been for this night only, but the air between them was kind and gentle. A lot had transpired, but the midwinter nightmare had come to an end. The pair had overcome many trials and tribulations. It could now leave the mirror realm in their wake. But before that,
随分と身勝手ね。それはあなた一人で決めていいことだったかしら、青子。
it was the voice of a beautiful songbird and a merciless machine, all rolled into one.
アリス。
Her voice quivered as she spoke the name. The lady in black made her presence known. The night was not over yet. Was not yet over. Her name was Alice Kuonji. She was a witch whose name struck fear into the heart of Alka, an avatar of the night who would allow no witnesses. Oh. Huh. Just do this one, I guess. That's so interesting, considering, like, how far have I been going for? Only like 40 minutes, yeah, and even then, that's because of the fact that what's the word? I literally I spent like 7 of them just fiddling with my mic settings. So in reality, I only did like 30 minutes. If I continued last stream, if I continued for half an hour more, probably like 40 minutes more, considering I was really tired, I probably would have finished. But I didn't have the strength in me because I was really tired. So, yeah. Already saved. Yep. Let's do it again. Let's see. Go to archives real quick, see if anything's added. Golly, this one was long. Yeah, this one was super long. When the night crawls, we got money, we got alcohol. Alrighty. Yep. Oh, cool foreshadowing. Next episode. Night of the Witches 2. The melody stirred an emotion like nostalgia within them. Something once familiar but now lost to this world. They believed, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that it would play for all eternity. From opening stanza to final coda. It was a mysterious siren song, merry yet longing, that heralded a return from their dreams to reality. The night shook. A song was spun. Now, the last paradise was unearthed. Abandoned dreams, forsaken idols. They all responded to the cry of a blue cat. The name of that bell was Diddle Dee, or excuse me, Diddle Dee. Over here thinking like this is the Wolf Among Us, or the name of the bell was Diddle Diddle, Banquet of the Night. All fables made possible, all marvels made real, but the magecraft of Alice Kawonji, more magical than magic itself. Alice sat perched atop the clock tower like a blackbird of ill omen. She smoothed the ruffles of her skirt as if she were preening.
Alice.
There was tension in Alco's voice as she lifted her head. The calm atmosphere from a moment prior had long since been shooed away by Alice's gaze. Sojiro searched his hazy memory. He could not clearly make out her face at this distance, but he was sure he had seen her around town a number of times. Where and when eluded him, however, as the tension in the air kept him from connecting all the dots.
驚いた。随分と仲間思いになったのね、アリス。今夜は私に任せるんじゃなかったっけ？
Alco readied her guard and took a half step forward, unconsciously. From an objective standpoint, it was almost as though it almost looked as though she were protecting the figure behind her. Alice's silence grew even heavier. W-A-S-D. W-A, okay. There you go. Her eyes fixed on the ground below her were devoid of emotion. An indescribable sense of dread. We're taking auto off. We're taking it off. Indescribable sense of dread and pressure laid claim over the plaza. I didn't know I could do that. That's funny. If he strained his ears, he could make out the faint ringing of a bell echoing in the distance. The rippling sound wave seemed, unbelievably, to be emanating from under the ground.
Oh,
Oh, okay. Sojiro stepped back, trying to stay out of the way. It was as though he had been told to go to... Yeah, there was a lot of venom in that. A lot of venom in that. But, you know, considering who we're dealing with, that makes sense. Yamate. for the crime of asking if the girl was Aoko's friend.
そうね。仲間思いに当てはまるかは微妙だけど、別にあなたの仕事を疑ったわけじゃないわ。
それはどうも。どうせならもう少し早くその良くない予感とやらに気づいてほしかったけど。でもま、ご覧の通り自己解決したわ。夜も遅いし、さっさと帰っていいわよアリス。私の仕事っぷりを疑うわけじゃないんでしょ。
This is some evilness. Their eyes locked on one another. Alice's stare was uncomfortably cold. Akos was bold, daring Alice to air her complaints. That's funny.
気が変わったわ。せっかくだし二人で帰りましょう。その方があなたらしいわ。帰りしな、人形の話でも聞かせてちょうだい。
らしいって何よらしいって。いいから帰れ帰れぐうたらアリス。部屋に閉じこもって役に立たないムクドリでも作ってろっての。
A disappointed sigh escaped Alice's delicate lips, seeing that the black-clad girl was more astonished than angry.
青子、口にしたくないけど、本気？
Quietly, Alice questioned her roommate of nearly 2 years.
呆れた。二人で秘密を守ると言ったのに。まだ半端にそっち側なの？それとも情でも移った？
別に情っていうより私の気分。
It's so petty.
だいたい方針なんてその場その場で変わるもんでしょ。気分ならなおさらよ。そっちこそ一度した約束は絶対守るなんて時代遅れなんじゃない？
Petty. The proverbial knives were out now. No quarter was given nor taken. Sadly, their partnership was one of convenience, and had now reached a level of mutual understanding. Their version of friendship was both delicate and unique. When a conflict of opinion arose, each would refuse to budge until the other crumbled. Excuse me. Neither was concerned for the other's plight, and at least for now, that was how they liked it.
そうね。今の暴言はあなたらしいとは思うけど。
Once again, she let out a sigh, even larger than the one before.
言い争いは後にしましょう。そこの彼をいなかったことにするのは。
Finally, she struck straight to the point, as if making to move. Oh, I thought that said a piece of cheese. Yo, I'm bugging. Oh my gosh. As if making to move a chess piece, Alice lifted her slender finger. Oh, well. A giant fork isn't gonna, help me beat the cheese allegations, but whatever.
言い争い、そこの彼を。
There you go. Even a simple action seemed mysterious to Sojiro. Same boy who had been hunted by his classmate Aoko and borne witness to an automaton. Ako's violence and an animated doll. Though perhaps far beyond the realm of logic, both those things were derived from reality. As surprised as he had been, there was no need to think of them as total mysteries. However, when the thing appeared out of thin air from a seemingly unrelated gesture, he had no word for it besides mysterious. Sojiro stood motionless, captivated by the stage performer's magic trick, as the girl's single-finger magecraft turned into an attack directed at him. It's a fork! A blue light flew from the side to repel it, annihilating it without a trace.
やば。
Ako immediately regretted her reflexive shot.
どういうこと？約束を曲げただけじゃなく、ルールまで破るつもり？
The already chilled midwinter air plunged below freezing. Alice looked calm and collected on the outside, but in reality, she was sometimes even more hot-blooded than Alka. This was especially true when it concerned her familiars. Accidentally breaking one would often result in a week of silent treatment. But against someone who maliciously destroyed her things, Alice was potent to retaliate without warning.
いつかやるとは思ったけど、ついに激鱗に触れちゃったか。
She's gonna kill you. Alko sighed to herself. Even she was exasperated by her own stupidity, yet she couldn't help but feel a pang of relief. She did not intend to make any excuses, and she had no regrets. She had broken the rules, and so had Alice.
青子。なんていうか。
If anything, this took a load off her mind. After all, now there was no going back. Excuse me. Aqua never intended to break her own rules. If there was anything for Aqua to regret, it was putting too little power into her
私
shot.
的に今夜こいつに死なれるのは困るのよ。
Miss, I tried to kill you earlier tonight, merchant.
なんで日を改めて殺しに来てくれないアリス。いいでしょ、たった1日ぐらい。
To Alko, it was simply natural to take on a pro bono case in defense of an innocent suspect.
それは市場。
悪い？一宿一般の恩義って割と大事にしてるの。
私との協定より。
Dang, you serious?
悪い？一宿一般の恩義って割と大事にしてるの。私。
Man, I still can't believe that Luka Doncic is not on a Dallas Mavericks anymore, bro. I'm sick. I'm sick. I'm sick to my stomach. Oh man, hopefully the Lakers treat him well.
私との協定より。
There you go.
ええ、時と場合によっても。
Sojo's human rights had not yet entered the argument. The girls were busy pouring oil on each other's flames. The girl clad in black was the first to move, or rather, to erupt.
そう。よくわかったわ、青子。私は彼をここで殺す。あなたは彼をここだけ生かす。つまり、私と戦う。ということでいい？
How unlucky that Alice had to be the one to be here. But this is so I actually knew that Alice was going to show up because if you were here last stream, one of my friends was actually watching me play, and he was the one that showed me. He's the one that showed me this game, and he showed me some of the scenes in it. And I know the House of Mirrors, this fight, and a post-credits thing that they have, a little like spoof thing, and the final chapter, some of it, not all of it, but like a couple of fights in it. So I'm not completely blind, but you know, I'm like 80%, like 70% blind. I know general ideas. I don't know how it happens though. Alko bit back to retort. She was very familiar with Alice's magecraft. She knew painfully well how many mystics were hidden in Alice's tiny body. The odds of victory were essentially non-existent. And once the first shot had been fired, Alice Kalonji was without mercy. Whether facing a roommate or a friend, a most beloved family member or a stranger. Once Alice began to fight as a witch, she became a heartless, unflappable monster. Huh. Well, no, I've heard that word before, but like I just never heard it like that. Akko advanced another half step forward as if to encourage herself. Poor girl's scared. I don't blame her. I would be scared too. It was too late to back down now. The situation was no longer a trivial quarrel over a witness. The bedrock of their so-called friendship had nothing to do with their individual abilities, and everything to do with being equals in will. That is why, in order to stay true to herself, Akko had no room for compromise or deception.
もちろん、あんたを殺すことになっても、そこのバカは生かしきるわ。
Oh, they're working now. I forgot, the curse is gone. Her magic circuits howled as they kicked into gear. Her body, which had mostly been dormant during the battle with the puppet, ignited, preparing to demonstrate its true worth.
それにどのみち最後には殺し合う仲でしょ私たち。
Her courage overpowered any fear she had for her opponent. Tuning her body, her magic circuits to become like the barrel of a gun, Akko fired a magic bullet. It was an exceedingly basic magecraft formula. There was no nature interference, no creating of wind, parting of water, nor hastening of decay. It was simply the process of converting the imaginary activity known as magical energy into something real, before releasing it as heat. Thus, Akko's destructive power was equal to her supply of magical energy. The magic bullets she had used against Sojiro were among the most basic single-action magecraft that did not require oh my goodness, there's so much to read. The magic bullets she had used against Sojiro were among the most basic single-action magecraft that did not require an incantation. At her present ability, Akko's main mode of attack, her magic bullet, could be fired at 3 levels of power. These were at the 2nd level. This required a double action magecraft. This required a double action magecraft, a casting through activation of her crest combined with simplified incantation. However, without blinking, Alice dispersed a shot that Akko had mustered out of her spirit to fire. Akko selling in front of the boys, asked to leave the function. Asked to leave Kitsy Land. Let me see. A swift sneak attack that uses simplified incantation would not be enough to break Alice's guard.
相変わらずお堅いこと。そのから一段と独りよがりになってるんじゃない？
Akko provoked Alice in order to disguise her own lack of composure. Somehow Alice seemed delighted by Akko's bravado.
言葉に買い言葉というやつね。こういう勢いだけのきっかけは初めてだけど、驚いたわ。こんなくだらない理由でもその気になるものなのね、人間って。
Ningen. Alice giggled. Smiling with heartfelt amazement, Alice gestured her left hand toward the earth. Stab, stab. Why? Who am I to question it? It's not my game. Countless utensils shot out from underneath the cobblestones paving the plaza.
しずきくん、後ろに飛んで。
Oh. She grabbed his hand and she shouted, jumping backward before he even had a chance to respond. As if they had wills of their own, the utensils that suddenly had appeared from the ground gave chase. As the barrier of their spears grew around them, Akko and Sojiro put some distance between themselves and the clock tower.
これで終わり？
Just under 30 feet stood between them and Alice. The lethal weapons that had crumbled the stone beneath them fell short of what Akko had anticipated. They now encircled the clock tower, making the scene look like the burning of a witch at a stake.
普通逆じゃない。ここは私たちを逃がさないよう槍で周りを囲むものでしょ。
The path behind them was safe. If they wanted, they could try to make a break for the main gate and escape.
いいのアリス。悪いけど逃げられるなら逃げるわよ。私。
Yo, what did they do to my guy? What did they do to my guy? They rendered him a side character when he's one of the main He has zippers. He has zippers on his pants. This might be the greatest main character in Nasuverse. Usually in the Nasu works. Because I'm just saying. Alka doesn't have any zippers. She's wearing her skirt. I don't see no zippers. But you know what my guy has? 1, 2, 3. He's just built different. I'm just saying, bro. Lions ain't built to be like this. Sojiro is. She could just make it back to town. It would be Akko's one. All she wanted to do was let Sojiro get away for the night. So she could get back to him to the city. So she could get him back to the city, it would be, for the most part, mission accomplished. What wasn't that? Oh. Wouldn't that be? So if she could get him back to the city, comma, it would be, comma, for the most part, comma, mission accomplished. But I guess that's a run-on sentence, so that would be able to work. Actually, no, that's gonna bother me. So like, the sentence could have been written differently. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to nitpick this game, and generally, I'm looking at this because I wanted, I like doing this. I'm not nitpicking, but more in the sense of like, when there's a typo, it's interesting because I'm trying to figure out, am I bugging, or is this actually a typo? I'm not trying to criticize the game. Like, it's not to be like, oh, this game sucks. There's like 4 typos. Like, no, that's not the point at all. It's just interesting because I'm trying to figure out, like, because that wasn't a typo. That was just a grammatical error from what I could understand. But then again, like, I'm not smart, so I can't sit here and flaunt, like, I can say definitively that's a grammatical error. It's not. I can barely even speak. So what ground do I have to say that's a grammatical error? But anyways, I don't know. I should find it interesting as all. So she had thought. Not even offering a glance at her targets below, Alice carefully and lovingly pulled out a bottle from her pocket.
緑のフラスコあれって確かやばとにかくファイヤー
Her shot was deflected with ease. Gone was Alco's earlier bravado. It was only natural. Alco had indeed grown as a mage. For the last 2 years of study, her studies had progressed well, and she more or less gotten a grasp of her roommate's tendencies and abilities. Whew. That's evil. That's really evil. This had made her conceited enough to believe that, under favorable circumstances, she'd be able to show Alice a thing or two in a fight. Alice uncorked the magical bottle. A gentle breeze caressed her cheek. Diddle diddle fled as a new player stepped on the stage. From where would it enter? The sound of footsteps, a nostalgic parade approached. What emerged was a miracle that Ako Ozaki, an apprentice mage, had never witnessed. The dead came to life. The inanimate awakened. The woods were enveloped by the mist. Fire-breathing lizards lurked in the swamps. Puppets made merry at midnight. Alice Kolonji's slender figures had transfigured the entirety of the park, as if gently stroking the back of an elderly cat.
いいわごっこ遊びをしましょう青子
For one night, the wasteland of Dash hopes and dreams was destroyed to its former glory. Kitsyland is back and it's surpassed its former glory. I'm here for it. It was an immortal monster ready to devour reality. A dark fairy tale that, once unleashed, would never let its prey escape.
逃げられるものなら逃げてみせて
Again with that eye.
どこまで行けるかわからないけどこの夜を越えることができたのなら
Her declaration marked the start of a desperate battle. The witch in black laughed at her friend. Her musical mirth filled with affection, sadness, and innocent delight. Wow. Alright, let me see how far I am now. Oh, look at that, we got 5 people watching. That's funny. Oh man, that's dumb funny. So what, I got an hour right now? Yeah, that's fine. Well, to the person that said that in the chat. Oh wow, everybody left. Never mind. Alrighty, well, whoever's here with me, I hope you enjoy. Faded Glory returned to Kitsyland. The neon glow of innumerable lights illuminated the night. Speakers filled the air with the sound of vinyl music. Merry-go-rounds, small and large, rolled round and round. All in all, it made for a mind-bending spectacle. It was certainly possible to power the facilities by transmuting magical energy into electricity via alchemy. That said, simply supplying the park with electricity would not have brought back to life that which was broken. The young woman did this not by mixing chemicals into a compound, but by melting down divine providence into a witch's brew.
まずいわね。アリスのプロイの何個か見てきたけど、今回のは桁が違う。セット。
Stifling her anxiety, Aqua fired up the crest on her right arm. If magic circuits were a mage's engine, then her crest was softer than I cannot talk. Wow. If magic circuits were a mage's engine, then her crest was softer that assisted her magecraft. For the fledgling mage Alco, this was her trump card. All she had to do was supply magical energy to her crest-based formula. It may not have been the strongest magecraft, but it was hers. Proof that she had the successor, teaching that she was the successor of the Aozaki lineage. Turn up, what's it called? Not that, right here. There you go.
講師2層、直流数門。
Okay, well, let me turn down this a little bit at least. 35. The pattern of her crest shifted to execute the formula, which then connected to her magic circuits. The processes resembled trains changing rails, a puzzle involving dozens of circuits. She constructed it as swiftly as possible without sacrificing the quality of its construction. Instant magecraft cast without an incantation would not be enough to reach Alice Kawanji. Alice had gauged the strength of Alice's defense. Alco had gauged the strength of Alice's defense with her initial shots. She would dial out the power 5 times the next time, driving 20 tons of force into her target. Alice had the protection of the thick, hanging fog and a dense barrier around her. However, this attack would be more than enough to pierce through both. If Alco struck home, it could cave in Alice's chest and end the fight. At worst, it would at least knock Alice down from her position atop the clock tower.
そろそろいいかな。
As always, there was one guy who spoiled the deadly tension, pulling Alco out of killer mode. Soja had been looking back and forth between Alco and Alice in confusion.
それでどういう話になったんだ？
He said it like he might ask for directions to the train station. Yo, these faces, bro. Oh my gosh. Oh man. Normally she would have lashed out in response, but his deadly serious tone shocked rather than angered her.
信じられない。慣れてきた。私。
Hako swallowed back a sigh and returned her focus to activating her crest.
交渉は決裂。ちょっと怒らせすぎた。あの子から見れば、まあいい機会だし、遊園地ごと私を亡き者にしようって腹ね。
Sojo tilted his head as if begging for a simpler explanation.
私、割とあの子に恨まれてるから。捕まったが最後、どんな風に殺されるか想像すらできないわ。要するに、あんたも私もあの子をどうにかしないと生きて帰れないってことよ。
そんなとばっちりだ。
Yeah. Oh man.
まあ そういうことになるかもね。
As Sojo protested in a tone wholly inappropriate to the situation, Ako let another blast rip from her right arm. She was not aiming at Sojo, though. A little earlier in the day, Ako would have been happy to do exactly that. But now, her attention was focused on the girl in black atop the clock tower. Aka's mind struggled to catch up to her astonishment. She had fired the strongest, fastest magical bullet she had the ability to conjure, and Alice blocked it. Not much was to be expected. When Alice set her mind to defending herself, such an attack was child's play. What just happened? Something Ako had never seen before leapt to Alice's defense. A team of horses? A plague of locusts? No, those existed in the real world, unlike what Ako had just witnessed. Normal creatures could not form like a spontaneous cloud of fog and then dissipate just as quickly into the night sky. Impossible things moved in impossible ways. I was not even supplying them with any power source. Those things never needed power in the first place. Those broken and discarded things did not follow the rules of mankind. This is an invasion of fairy tales. Compared to them, the automaton looked merciful. Yeah, no, this is crazy. Autonomous puppets are products of magecraft, but even then they behaved as puppets should. These newly animated things, however, were nothing of the sort. Empty vessels became living creatures. Dummies warped into malformed beings. There was a fog so dense with magical energy, it visibly spread to all corners of the park, bringing with it a monstrous welcoming party that easily numbered over 1,000. Spurred on by shuddering sensation running down her spine, Ako fired a barrage of single-action magic bullets. Her impulsive attack scattered futilely. The knights of the merry-go-round soared into the sky. Green, fire-breathing lizards flocked. Oh. The bakeries opened their doors once again, and human-sized loaves of fresh bread marched from their ovens as platoons of newly baked soldiers. Ako and Sojo were completely surrounded. The Ferris wheel creaked as it gently turned. A rickety train car raced around the roller coaster tracks with kitsy tears streaming down its face aboard. Huh. It was a glossy, twisted fantasy. The girl in black reigned over the insanity-fueled park. Oh, now we're screwed. Ako was transfixed by the scene unfolding around her, as she realized what was happening. Alice had once told her of Meinster's familiars. Among them were 3 particular notoriety, one of which she recalled being capable of something similar to this, and it was called Struck by Ako's bullets, the creatures exploded into splinters. That is really just bread. That's funny. It was clear Ako's shots were becoming more powerful. It was also the case that these beings were less robust than your average automata. Ako turned away from the clock tower, grabbed his hand and began to run. She shouted as still trying to persuade herself as she bounded and cleared the path. Ako's magic bullets flew like a scream, blowing away the creatures that blocked or simply gathered around their path. She made a hole for them to escape through. That's a lot of bread. Oh, okay. Magical bullets explode like blue fireworks. Akko and Sojo ran down the bumpy brick road. Their bond, forged in the heat of battle, went far beyond mutual convenience. They headed for the park's exit at full speed without exchanging a word or a look. The weirdness only extended as far as the park border, so they would be as safe as long as they made it outside. But, speaking in pure numbers, the difference in strength was 2 versus an army. Or rather, 1 versus an army. Sojo was hardly useful in this situation, and manpower wasn't really the issue here, since they were facing puppets.
さっきの大丈夫？上からこうでっかいハサミが落ちてきたけど。
Akko shuddered as she blasted away the monsters that stood in her path. There was no time to stop for breath or even to look back.
なんとかギリギリ。
As Sojo pursued, his voice too, hardly natural, became shrill. 5 minutes earlier, they had broken out of the siege of the plaza surprisingly fast. Seeing that the residents' awakening deferred case by case, with larger creatures taking additional time.
ラッキー、朝に弱いタイプばっかと見た。
Making jokes now? Akko joked as she mowed down the small fry that popped up. But then, without warning, something outrageous extended its way down from above them. There was the claws of a 60-foot lobster adorning the roof of a seafood restaurant. Its pincers were like a guillotine. As Akko and Sojo cut across the front of the restaurant, the Red King pressed in a tremendous speed, keen on splitting them each in two.
しずきくん、Uターン、こっちはダメ。
Hard aboard. Hard aboard. The gate was just on the other side of the restaurant, but they had to take the long way around in order to lose the giant lobster snapping at their heels. Waiting along their detour had been a horde of monsters, too many to count.
なんとかギリギリ。
Sojo called out her response, recalling just how narrowly he had avoided his head being severed clean from his goodness. That's
でま
the arc.
うわ、なんだあれ。焼きたてか。
そうみたいね。要するに下級兵士よ。
Alcohol halted her sprint instead of cresting a full operation.
7、6、5メートル。あの程度ならスナップだけで事足りる。
Sliding along the brick path, she brandished her right arm. She loosed a shower of punching bullets. Snap was a single action spell that favored rate of fire overpowered, and it mowed down the monsters with satisfying pops.
青崎そっちも。
了解。
Blue explosions bloomed along the lamplit promenade. Akko's curtain of fire fanned out. It was a marvelous Starmine fireworks show. The toy breadman turned to charcoal.
いける。数でこそ押されてるけど、この状態が続くなら逃げ切れる。しずきくん、そっちは。
いない、空いてる。ここからなら入り口の東側に出られるはずだ。
With a magical barrage that would leave an average spellcaster blue in the face, the novice mage broke through the siege. Remember that bird? Remember him? Kinda crazy. Meanwhile, a single bird keenly watched everything unfold. Ah, if only you weren't so short. Yeah, 4 minutes isn't enough. Chirp, cheep, 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 chirp. The moment the bluebird descended into its master's field of vision, it made its high-pitched call. The girl listened expressionlessly to the report.
構わないわ。予想通りよ。撃つこと、壊すことしか脳がなくても、青子の魔力の使い方は波じゃないから。
Alvin flapped his wings as it tweeted in response. Perhaps it was criticizing Alice for complaining Akko, or perhaps it was jealous of Akko for being praised by Alice. Alice could barely make sense of the chirping rant. Akko Ozaki was a novice mage. Until just 2 years ago, she had grown up with no background in magecraft. Compared to Alice, who was raised as a witch from birth, Akko possessed far less talent and experience. Simply no comparison to be made. In contests of skills in magecraft, 10 times out of 10, Alice would be declared the victor. However, that narrative changed when it came to battle for life or death. Alice Koonji was not the type of mage suited to combat, while Akko Ozaki, on the other hand, was built for it. In a contest that pitted magical energy against magical energy, even Alice would concede that Akko had the upper hand. Akko's manipulation of magical energy was extraordinary. The scale of her magic circuits was smaller than that of Alice, but their rotational speed, durability, and output quality, not to mention efficiency, were otherworldly. That was Akko Ozaki's hallmark. Though she had many failings when handling sophisticated formulae, in just 2 years of practice, Akko had surpassed Alice in simple formulae that merely required an energy input. Alice had genius instinct and adaptability. Though Akko was not particularly proficient at executing magecraft, she was terrifyingly fast. If she had been born outside the Aozaki clan, she would have doubtless risen to fame as a competitive sharpshooter.
でも
In a straight shootout, Alice did not stand a chance. Alice Koonji had never bothered to learn primitive magecraft like magic bullets in the first place. She was the classic puppeteer. Her familiar served as her arms and legs to carry out all the particulars of battle.
制限時間には気づいているわよね、青子。魔力はいくらでも貸してあげるけど、あなたの魔弾はあと半時で値崩れするわ。
Chirping as if in agreement, the robin took flight. It had been merely 10 minutes since Alice had made the amusement park into her. Wow, really? Honestly, I thought it was only like 3. To what would the green fog give birth next? Akko and Sojiro, still running about, would soon come to understand the gravity of the situation. But this next part is on too long.
しずきくん、正門ってこっち？
ああ、その店を曲がれば出口だ。
Running non-stop at full speed had them at their limits. Their breath ragged, the duo rounded a corner at breakneck pace. Amusement park though it was, this is still the infamous Kitsy Land. It would have taken a high school student 20 minutes to sprint the entire circumference of the park. You know, they were now intimately familiar with the park's geography. It was changing beyond recognition. Transformation was not limited to the park's residents either.
大崎、
何を？
言いたくないんだけど、この遊園地広くなってないか。
It was. The problem wasn't as mundane as mistaking the location of the exits, nor the strange terrain. Oh, poor Sojiro. No, the park was warping and twisting upon itself. Even as they ran, its structure was expanding and growing, like that of a living creature. As soon as the pair noticed that the mob encircling them had grown even stronger, entrusting her back to Sojiro, Akko summoned all her effort just to keep them from whining. No one would blame Sojiro for cowering in shock, but for Akko to do the same, she bore responsibility for causing and then dragging him into this mess. She could not afford to succumb to panic.
大丈夫。落ち着け私。遊園地の果てはある。遠いけど、鉄柵はちゃんと見える。フラットスナークだって制限なしってわけじゃない。外に逃げるって選択は正しいはず。現状、外までの目算で1キロぐらいだけど。
Up until now, they had been too concerned with simply running. Their breathing had become labored. They had to run another mile without rest. They'd end up collapsing along the way.
大崎、体大丈夫か？
え？
The whisper from behind pulled Akko back to reality.
大丈夫だけど、ちょっと一息入れたいわね。
賛成。ここから休みなしで外周まで走るのはやめた方がいい。
驚いた。しずきくんも外まで走ろう派とは。
She lets slip a look. Wow. She lets slip a giggle. Far from debilitated by panic, her comrade in arms had been analyzing the situation and forming an escape plan.
ちょっとだけ建物に逃げ込むのは。
気は進まないけど、それしかないわね。
The breadmen had completely surrounded. Had them completely surrounded. Perhaps this might have been a problem for an average person, but for Akko, breaking through the formation to get to the building would be a cinch. The issue was,
問題はどんな店を選ぶかってこと。
she considered the characteristics of the transforming park. What would pose a danger, and what was safe. The most important factor was not the strength or the complexity of the building.
そうだ。選ぶならあの単純さで正しいはず。しずきくん、あっち。
After riding the monsters, Akko hopped up behind the counter, soon followed by Sojiro.
カウンターに隠れてて。
Like she was in a western shootout, Akko squared off against the monsters, using the counter as cover.
ビンゴ。ここならスナーク化しないんだ。
After assessing the current state of the enemy, Akko sat down under the counter.
あいつらは。
店の周りで地団打踏んでるわ。理由があってね。あいつらはここには入ってこられないのよ。
Akko gave the perplexed Sojiro a grin and took a moment to catch her breath. She heaved a heavy sigh of relief and fatigue.
とりあえずコーヒーブレイクね。ここは遊園地の中でも遊びのない場所だから、あいつらにとっては鬼門なのよ。レジスターも調理器具も最近のものだし、擬人化されたマスコットもないし、スナーク化するにはちょい文明犬すぎるってこと。
スナーク。
あいつらの名前よ。つけたのは私じゃなくてアリスなのかしらね。あの子の性格的にちょっと想像できないけど、まあとにかくそういう名前。
Perhaps now at ease knowing that they were safe. Perhaps now at ease from knowing they were safe, Sojiro seemed enthralled in her explanation. Akko could not help but chuckle as Sojiro nodded sagely. It was certain that he had no idea what she was talking about. Normally this would have irritated her, but this time she was grateful for the warmth of his strange sobriety.
それはともかく調子良さそうだな、青崎。
Mistaking her smile for composure, Sojiro broke into a smile himself. Just another link in a chain of misunderstandings. There was no need to redress it.
あれ？あなたから見てもわかる？私のマダーの威力が上がっているの。
そりゃミラーハウスで散々追いかけ回されたからな。あの時と同じ動作なのに物騒さが増していれば嫌でもわかる。でもいいのか？確か数に限りがあるとか言ってただろう。もう随分撃っちまったけど20、30じゃ効かないぞ。
あんた時々あれよね。
ん？
Her opinion of him improved just a little bit.
なんでもない。私のマダーの威力が上がっているのは単純に魔力の濃度の問題。さっきから霧がかかってるでしょ。あれ全部魔力なのよ。弾を撃つための燃料と思って。
Magical energy was divided into two broad categories. First was Ode, produced inside a mage's body. Second was mana, which filled the atmosphere. At the moment, the amusement park had turned into a fairy tale land, overflowing with mana. Though it meant nothing to the average person, to a mage it was a paradise where spells could be cast as much as one pleased.
じゃあ残り魔力とやらは気にしなくていいのか。注意すべきは怪我と体力だけ。
まあ個人的な責任においてはその限りね。
Sojiro breathed a sigh of relief. From Sojiro's perspective, more so than the monster she mowed down, Akko was the biggest bully on the playground. She had been concerned about what would happen should her magical energy be exhausted. Luckily for him, she was far from surrendering her crown.
頼りにしてくれるのは嬉しいけど、ぬか喜びよ。あんな雑魚たち、ただ動いているだけのガラクタなんだから。スナーク本体は当然として、アリスが他の童話の怪物を出してきたら、私じゃどうにもならない。
他の童話の怪物。遊園地をこんな風に変えたやつ以外にまだいるのか？
そう、プロイキッシャーって名付けられた、私たちでさえ目を背けたくなる反則。不可能な夢物語をも再現する時代に取り残されたデタラメよ。
Doja's expression seemed to be calling her out on her hypocrisy.
あのね、私たちはちゃんと現代に寄り添った魔術師よ。できないこともあるし、当たり前のことだけど、近代兵器にはかなわない。20世紀、まあいろんな戦争の後押しで兵器の進化は私たちを超えちゃったから。けどあの子のは違う。どんなに人間の技術が進歩しようと関係ないって怪物なの。例えばあのブレッドマンいるでしょ。あいつには自動拳銃とか効かないわよ。多分意味が分かっていないから。
Hako casually gestured outside, past the counter.
アリスの使い魔は全てが空想によってこねられた神秘なの。前提からしてありえないことだから、通常の物理法則と折り合いが悪い。空想と現実は両立しないっていうごく当たり前の理由でね。
なるほど。ブレッドマンってのはあの動く焼きたてパンのことなんだな。
Yeah, but that's what they were before. Sojo seemed to have ignored the majority of Haku's explanation and reacted to the part that caught his curiosity.
話を戻すけど、あいつらと近代兵器の相性は最悪。ロケット弾でも効果はないわ。意思の疎通、秩序の共有ができてないから。プロイキッシャーにとって彼らの世界には存在しないもの、意味がわからないものは触れることなく無産する。彼らに通じるのは同じ神秘を帯びた魔力だけっていうデタラメぶりよ。もう完全に概念空間っていうか概念宇宙っていうか。要するにあいつらは伝承防御っていう特別なルールを持っていて、単純に強い力、強い魔術じゃ効果は薄いの。元になった童話にちなんだ欠点をつかないと倒せない。ギリシャ神話のアキレスあたり分かりやすい例えなんだけど、知ってる？
Jojo shook his head.
そう、無事帰れたら飛び丸あたりに教えてもらって。定番だけどいい話よ、あれ。
Sojo was feeling pretty lost, but he did his best to grasp the situation. He thought the plug kickshaws were scary enough to chase Alco and that puppet from before out of the house barefoot. So everything that seemed before them was the stuff of nightmares. Sojo had a different way of thinking.
やっぱり青崎の方が怖くないか？
あんた死ぬの？
She didn't even get. What? There you go. I gotta see that again. Hold on.
やっぱり青崎の方が怖くないか？
あんた死ぬの？
Oh, that's funny. Sojo waved in protest, silently pointing out that she had made his case for him. Oh, that's funny.
あのね、今私たちを取り囲んでるのはおまけに過ぎないの。アリスにとってあのブレッドマンもロブスターもソーセージ屋のミンチマシーンも全部が全部私が撃ってる魔弾より価値がない。いい？あの動くマスコットたちはね、ただのおまけなの。アリスが解放した童話の怪物の一呼吸みたいなものなのよ。
呼吸ってこれが？
私だって考えたくないわよ。でもそれが現状。たった一体の童話の怪物だけで私たちは手一杯。そういうわけだから アリスがあと1体でも追加したら諦めて。
追加ってこれに制限はないのか？
あの子が出し惜しみしなければまだ何体かストックはあるでしょうけど、まあ成立する条件はあるわね。例えば川がないと目を覚まさない怪物もいる。この遊園地噴水はあるけど川はないでしょ。元になった童話縛りなの、あの子の使い魔は。
童話ってかけそばとか？
ここに川がないのは不幸中の幸いね。もしあったらもっと直接制圧に向いたやつが出てきてた。
I would continue, completely ignoring Sojiro.
話の続きだけど、アリスの魔術の基本はマザーグースって知らないか。イギリスの歌で遊び心に富んだメルヘンチックな内容よ。ただそっち系のプロイキッシャーは怖くないの。みんなそれなりになんとか魔術にも落とし込める範囲だから。
聞きたくないんだけど、そっち系じゃないのは？
マザーグースを下地にしたとある創作童話系。あの子のお母さんが好きでね。こっち系のはどいつもこいつも尋常じゃない。私たちから見ても勘弁してって言いたくなるわ。でこの遊園地を生き返らせたのはこっち系よ。多分フラットスナークってやつだと思う。私も聞き流していたから詳しくはわからないけど。
Sojiro swallowed the discomfort making its way up his throat. He really wanted her to explain things a little less vaguely. Something she had just said necessitate further investigation.
待て青崎、あの子の話を聞き流したってなんで？
いや説明してもらったのは随分と前だし、あの頃はアリスの話あんまり信じられなかったのよね。私が素人だと思って大げさに自分の魔術を語ってくれてるな、舐められてるなとか。
In truth, if anyone had taken the lesson seriously, it was Akko. She would learn that lesson firsthand soon enough. She experienced just how real Alice's monsters were. She had also discovered how heretical the monster witches truly were in the world of magecraft.
その聞き流した内容は？
何でも強力な結界を張るプロイだって。アリスが受け継いだプロイは山ほどあるけど、その中でもえりすぐりの一つよ。捨てられたもの、忘れられたものを童話的に蘇らせるやつで、今まで誰も破ったことがないとか。それでついたあだ名が触れられぬもの。
フラットスナークじゃないのか？
それもあだ名。とにかく正体がわからないやつばっかりなんで、一つの個体に複数の名前が付けられるの。フラットスナークはその中でも正体不明さはトップランクのデタラメぶりよ。あなたルイス・キャロルの「スナーク狩り」って本知ってる？
Heard all the answer to that question.
そもそもルイス・キャロルというのは？
そっからか。ドジスン教授はそうね、特殊性癖を持った妄想紳士ってとこ。まあこっちは別にどうでもいいか。人によっては時間の無駄だろうし。今重要なのは彼が残した著作の方。スナーク狩りはね、スナークって呼ばれる正体不明の怪物を捕まえようと奔走する冒険家たちの話なの。キャロルらしい皮肉ばっちり、支離滅裂、意味不明、結末不在の本当に困った本で、一行は島で苦しみつつ最終的にはスナークを見つけるものの、見つけたベイカーは唐突に姿を消して終わってしまう。よくわからないもの探しに奔走する人間の風刺なんだけど、この遊園地において誰がベイカーで何がスナークかは言うまでもないでしょ。
Akko elected not to share this, but Flack Snark had other popular names as well. The Enigmatic Island, the Five-Dimensional Plane, These names were not given to it by Alice, rather mothered by other mages whom Meisters defeated. In mathematics, snark is a term used in graph theory to refer to contradictory and impossible planar graphs. A plane, proven to be unable to exist in this world, was given a name, apt for an ill-fated existence paradoxical in nature. The fairy tale monster ascribed this name was said to hold no form discoverable by man. Akko had also declined to mention something else. Flat Snark was a fairy tale monster that could grow. It would hide somewhere in the amusement park, continuously exhaling magical energy until the park completely transformed into a fantasy land.
脅かしてもしょうがないし。
何か言ったか？
別に。簡単に言って、童話世界の再生がフラットスナークの力なの。この遊園地との相性は抜群でしょうね。何しろ元々が童話を元にした遊び場だから。
This had been a business district, for example, Flashlight would have posed far less of a threat. At most, its power would be limited to projecting the shadow of a dinosaur on top of buildings' window panes.
お、だからここは安全だって。ん？
Tojo realized that something was wrong when he noticed a glutinous liquid dripping down onto his back. He looked up to the ceiling. Their eyes met. Before he had a chance to think, Tojo hopped up from the floor. Taking the initiative, he jumped out from behind the counter. Trying to stop him from committing the act of suicide, she also came to her feet. Immediately, she noticed something coming to life overhead. The gargantuan mouth clamped shut. With no mascot to speak of, the burger joint itself began to transform into one giant monster.
もう、なんで天井にピエロの絵なんて描いてんのよ、あの店。普通もっと違うところに労力割かない？そんなにピエロが好きなら入り口にでも飾っとけ。
Akko aired out her grievances as she ran. There was no safe haven left. Moment by moment, last remnants of civilization were being eroded away by fairy tales. Goodness. Yeah, no, I'm saving this for later. let me see. There you go. Yeah. Alright, how long have I been going for? Should be like 50 minutes now. Yeah, like 145. Yeah, that's fine. Alrighty. Well, I'm gonna end it here for now. I got decently far. I don't know how much I have left. I know that I still have some stuff that I have to get to, but like from the spoilers that I've seen. But nah, shoot. Let me at least go to the title screen. But yeah, no. Made a decent way through. We've seen Alice. We've seen her some of her magic, and it's just getting crazy. So I'm excited to continue that at some point. I want to at least get one stream in before I have to go back to work and all that. But yeah, no, I'm super excited to continue. So, you know, just gonna leave it here for now. And yeah, no, to whoever's still here watching, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next stream. When that will be, I don't know, but you know, we'll see. But yeah.